I'm doing a stir fry today. A couple things you need to remember about a stir fry. You can use a wok to cook it in, or you can use a large skillet like this, but it needs to have a higher sides on it, because you're going to be cooking the vegetables or meat, whatever you have in it, very quickly, and you're going to be tossing them continually. You also will have some oil in there, so you don't want it going all over. So I'm doing a pork stir fry, and I've got my, when you do meat, you want to cut it thinly in small pieces so that it cooks thoroughly through. And I've cut my pork like this, and I'm going to put it in. I've made a little marinade with this recipe that I'm going to put the pork in here and kind of toss it around to coat it before we cook it. Now, you don't need to do this. A lot of the recipes tell you just to put it in and cook the meat, but you also will cook the meat separately from the other vegetables, and a lot of times you'll cook the vegetables separately. It just depends on how quickly the ingredients cook. If you put them all in there at the same time, you won't get them cooked thoroughly. So I've got the pork in here. Now I'm going to turn this up on high. We want it good and hot, because you cook it quickly, where the inside of the meat will stay moist, the inside of the vegetables will stay crisp. And you just want to cook the outside. Of course, you want the pork or any meat to be thoroughly cooked. Okay, it sounds like it's very hot. Let's see here. Yes, it is. You put your oil in first, which I think I told you, but you always want a little oil on the bottom of it. Now, you can use any kind of cooking oil, olive oil. The flavored oils like sesame is really good in a stir fry. But you want to continually toss the ingredients because the burner is so hot. And you don't want to crowd the pan, because you want to make sure all of it touches the bottom. Otherwise, it'll get more soggy instead of cooking. You want each piece to be cooked thoroughly. Also, it's best if all of your vegetables are dry when you put them in. And when you cook meat, it is best to get the most tender cuts. Since it's cooking very quickly, it's best to have the tender cuts. The tough ones, tough pieces of meat do not work well in a stir fry. Okay, it looks like this pork is good and done now. You can see how nice and brown it is. So I'm just going to take it all out and put it on a plate and set it aside until I'm ready to put it back in. Okay, I'm going to add a little more oil in the pan for the vegetables. And I'm going to put the onions in and the mushrooms. And I've sliced the mushrooms thinly. But the recipe's here, and everything's on the recipe. And I'm just going to keep tossing them so they don't burn. Okay, now that the mushrooms and onions have cooked enough, I'm going to add the baby sweet corn, and this has already been cooked when it was canned, so that goes in last. And I don't want the green onions cooked very much, so those will go in last. And then I'm going to re-add the cooked pork, and we're going to stir fry this just long enough to warm it up. Now this recipe also has a sauce that gives it a lot of flavor, and so I'm going to, it's a little cornstarch cooked with soy sauce, and I'm just going to stir this in, and then it will be ready to eat. You don't want these vegetables to cook much at all. Just enough to heat them up. Then we'll put some on a plate and show you how good it looks. People love this. And there's a nice plate of the pork stir fry.